A very dangerous person is a very good man who's been pushed too far. He appears to be kind, but his kindness is a strategic decision.
Have you ever felt it? A quiet, persistent ache of being a garden that everyone else uses to plant their sorrows? A feeling that your soul's soil is endlessly fertile, but only for others' needs? They come to you with their thorny vines of anger, their invasive weeds of anxiety, their heavy stones of grief, and you, with your open heart, you let them plant. You tend to their pain, watering it with your empathy, shielding it with your energy, hoping that by helping their garden grow, yours might somehow flourish in the reflected light. But when you look at your own inner landscape, what do you see? Perhaps you see your own flowers, the vibrant blossoms of your dreams and your joy, struggling for sunlight, choked by the relentless overgrowth of everyone else's emotional baggage. You might feel exhausted, depleted, and lonelier than ever, standing in a garden that bears everyone's name but your own. You have given away so much of your land that you've forgotten the scent of your own roses. If this feeling resonates deep within your bones, know that you are not broken. You are not too sensitive. You are a gardener of immense power who was simply never taught how to tend to your own sacred ground. You are standing at the gate of a profound transformation, and what lies beyond is the rediscovery of your own wild, beautiful, and sovereign soul. If this garden feels like your own, if its forgotten pathways and overgrown corners echo the landscape of your heart, then I invite you to walk this path with me together. This journey is one of reclamation, of learning the language of your own soil, of remembering the names of your own native flowers. If you feel called to this work, consider subscribing to Mind Decode Explained. We are a community of fellow gardeners, learning to cultivate our inner worlds with wisdom, courage, and profound self-compassion. Let us begin this journey home, back to ourselves. This place, this inner world of yours, let's call it the forgotten garden of the soul. In the beginning, this garden was yours completely. As a child, its soil was rich with wonder and potential. But early on, something happened. The caretakers of your young garden, perhaps unintentionally, taught you a painful lesson, that your worth was measured by how well you could accommodate their needs. They taught you that your soil was for them. If a parent was a storm of rage, you learned to become a deep, absorbent earth, taking in the flood so others wouldn't be washed away. If a sibling was consumed by jealousy, you learned to shrink your own blossoms, to grow smaller so their fragile ego could have more sun. This is what psychologists call an insecure attachment pattern. But in our garden, it's simpler. It is the soil learning to prioritize every seed except its own. You became an expert botanist of other people's pain. You learned the precise conditions needed for their validation to grow, the exact amount of your own sunlight you had to sacrifice for their comfort to flourish. This wasn't a conscious choice. It was a survival strategy. You were praised for being the good, easy, understanding one. In the language of the garden, you were praised for how beautifully you grew everyone else's crops while your own land went fallow. The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung spoke of a concept he called the shadow. It's a term that sounds ominous, but it is, in fact, the key to reclaiming your garden. The shadow is not evil. It is simply all the parts of yourself you were taught to disown, to bury deep in the soil because they were deemed unacceptable. Think of them as the native plants of your soul's ecosystem. Your anger? That is a thorny, protective rosebush, essential for setting boundaries and keeping out intruders. Your fierce intuition, that deep knowing in your gut, that is the complex, unseen root system, connecting you to the deep wisdom of the earth, able to sense danger long before it breaks the surface. Your right to say no, to put your own needs first, those are the strong, unyielding stones that form the foundation of a healthy garden wall, protecting the sacred space within. But you were taught these parts were bad. You were told your roses were too sharp, your roots were too messy, your stones were too selfish, so you buried them. You tried to become a garden of only soft, pleasing, acceptable flowers, pansies, and daisies, and in doing so, you ripped out your own natural defenses. You left the gates wide open, This is the core of the empath's dilemma. You became what Jung might call an emotional shock absorber for your entire social system. Your garden became the communal dumping ground. People sensed the richness of your soil, the depth of your compassion, and they came relentlessly. They didn't see a sovereign territory. They saw unclaimed land. And you, conditioned to believe your purpose was to serve, let them. You absorbed their toxins, their negativity, their unresolved trauma, believing this was the price of love, the cost of connection. The work of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk in his profound book, The Body Keeps the Score, reminds us that this absorption is not metaphorical. The body, the very soil of our being, stores this trauma. The unexplained exhaustion you feel, the chronic tension in your shoulders, the persistent ache in your chest, that is the physical manifestation of a garden drowning in foreign weeds. Your soul is tired of processing toxins that were never yours to begin with. Here, we encounter the first great thorn of misconception we must gently remove, the belief that your sensitivity is a weakness. This is a lie, a deeply ingrained piece of cultural programming designed to keep powerful people small. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a highly advanced perceptual system. It is your garden's innate ability to feel the shifts in the wind, to sense the quality of the rain, to know which seeds are nourishing and which are poison. But because you were taught to doubt this system, you began to pathologize it. When your intuition screamed that someone was being deceptive, you were told you were overthinking or being paranoid. When you felt the heavy weight of unspoken tension in a room, you were told you were too emotional. In the garden, this is like being told that your ability to sense an approaching blight is the problem, not the blight itself. So you learn to silence your own inner wisdom. You apologize for seeing the truth, for feeling the reality that others were committed to denying. You became an expert at gaslighting yourself, convincing yourself that the poison ivy someone just handed you was, in fact, a lovely houseplant. This self-betrayal is the most painful cut of all. It's the act of the gardener poisoning their own soil to make an intruder feel more comfortable. But here's the secret that Jung observed, the part that terrified observers because it hinted at a dormant power of unimaginable scale. While you were passively absorbing, you were also actively studying. You weren't just a victim of these invasive species. You were becoming the world's foremost expert on them. You kept a silent, meticulous record. In our garden, this means you didn't just let the weeds grow. You cataloged them. You learned their names, their origins, their root structures, their flowering cycles, their specific poisons. You know exactly which thorny vine of insecurity belongs to your partner, which parasitic creeper of manipulation belongs to your parent, which shade-casting tree of narcissism belongs to your boss. You have mapped the entire dysfunctional ecosystem with the precision of a master botanist. You know their triggers, their deepest fears, the hollow spaces inside them they are so desperately trying to fill. You have never used this knowledge. You have held it silently with a grace and restraint that your abusers could never comprehend. Your mind is not a victim's diary filled with tear-stained pages. It is a strategist's war room, a detailed topographical map of every psychological landscape you have ever been forced to inhabit. You see everything. And this, my friend, is not weakness. This is genius in hiding. This is a weapon, waiting to be forged not into a sword for revenge, but into a plowshare to cultivate your own land, and a spade to finally, decisively uproot what does not belong. And then, one day, it happens. The moment that changes everything. Jung called it a snap, but it is more like a profound and deafening silence after a lifetime of noise. It is the clarity event. It is always triggered by a betrayal, but not just any betrayal. It is a betrayal from a person for whom you have sacrificed a significant portion of your garden, someone whose weeds you have tended as if they were your own precious orchids. It might be the discovery of a deep infidelity, a shattering financial deception, or the final, undeniable realization that their love was always conditional, a transaction designed to extract your resources. The devastation isn't just in the act itself. It's in the horrifying, crystal clear realization that your own inner guidance system, your garden's innate wisdom, had been screaming warnings at you all along, and you actively chose to ignore them. You see the faint trail of poison you overlooked, the subtle wilting of your own flowers you explained away, the shadow the invasive plant cast long before it took over. In this moment, the person who betrayed you expects a storm. They expect tears, rage, a chaotic emotional collapse. They are prepared for that. They know how to manage your pain because they have been feeding on it for years. But that is not what happens. Instead, a stillness descends upon you, a calm so profound it is terrifying to anyone who has only known your compliance. In the Forgotten Garden, this is the moment the weary gardener finally stops watering the weeds. They put down the tools of accommodation, they stand up straight, wiping the dirt from their hands, and for the first time, they see the entire garden with piercing, objective clarity. The excuses fall away like dead leaves. The rationalizations wither on the vine. The desperate hope for change evaporates like morning mist. All that is left is the cold, hard, undeniable truth of the landscape. They see the parasite for what it is. They see the poison for what it is. They see their own neglected flowers gasping for life. This is the moment of integration. It is not an act of rage, but of profound, radical self-alignment. You begin to speak, not with cruelty, but with the calm, detached precision of a surgeon identifying a disease. You start to name the weeds, one by one. This is your insecurity, which you planted here when you belittled my success. This is your manipulation, a vine you wrapped around my life to keep me small. This is your undealt with trauma, a toxic weed you expected my soil to neutralize for you. You are not attacking them. You are simply describing the reality of the garden. You are finally using your gift of complete perception not to make excuses for others, but to narrate the truth of your own experience. To the person who has thrived on your silence and self-doubt, this calm recitation of fact is more terrifying than any emotional outburst could ever be, because it is irrefutable. It signals that the game is over. The land is no longer available for colonization. This is the integration of your shadow. You are finally reaching into the soil and reclaiming those parts of you that you buried for so long. You pull up the thorny rosebush of your righteous anger, not to attack, but to plant it firmly at your gate. You unearth the solid stones of your boundaries and begin to build a wall, not of imprisonment, but of protection. You listen to the deep, silent wisdom of your root system, your intuition, and you trust it. Absolutely. You are merging your light, your compassion, your empathy, your boundless capacity for love with your dark, your anger, your strength, your unshakable perception of truth. This is when you dismantle the second great thorn of misconception, that anger is a negative or destructive emotion. You realize that anger, your anger, is a sacred life force. It is the energy of no. It is the fierce love of a mother protecting her child. It is the gardener's righteous fury at the blight that threatens her sacred ground. It is the fuel for transformation. When integrated with your compassionate heart, it does not become cruel. It becomes precise. It becomes clear. It becomes the energy you need to do the hard work of pulling up a lifetime of weeds. This transformation, as Jung noted with a mixture of awe and disturbance, is permanent. Once the gardener has seen the truth of their landscape, they cannot unsee it. They do not revert to people-pleasing. They do not apologize for their new fence. They do not second-guess the clear signals of their own root system. They have become what every manipulator, every emotional vampire, every user of sacred land fears the most, an empath who can no longer be manipulated. Your very presence begins to shift. People who once walked all over you now feel an inexplicable sense of caution in your presence. They can't quite put their finger on it. You aren't being aggressive or unkind, but there is a solidity to you, a centeredness, a quiet knowing that communicates without a single word, that your soil is no longer for public use, The great writer and researcher Brené Brown talks about the power of boundaries, saying, "Daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others." The awakened empath no longer just understands this intellectually. They embody it. Their boundaries are not walls of hate, but fences of self-love. The garden begins to heal, and its healing transforms the entire ecosystem around it. You stop being the emotional dumping ground, and the dysfunctional systems that relied on you begin to collapse or are forced to evolve. The alcoholic relative, no longer able to plant their bottles of rage in your soil, is forced to confront their own barren land. The manipulative friend, finding your gate is now closed to their parasitic vines, must seek sustenance elsewhere or learn to grow their own roots. The healthy people in your life, however, flourish. The authentic friends, the true partners, they are like the bees and butterflies. They are drawn to the newfound vitality and beauty of your garden. They celebrate your fence because it makes them feel safe, too. They love the scent of your own native flowers, finally allowed to bloom in the sun. You become what Jung might have called a living mirror. Your clear, well-tended presence reflects back to people the truth of their own intentions. Manipulators see their own ugliness in your clarity and flee. Authentic souls see their own beauty reflected in your authenticity and draw closer. You don't have to do anything. Your sovereignty does the work. Your empathy does not disappear. This is the most beautiful discovery of all. It becomes refined, focused, and powerful. It becomes what Jung called selective empathy. You still have the deep, rich soil of compassion, but you are now a conscious, discerning gardener. You choose which seeds you allow into your sacred space. You offer your water and sunlight to those who are also trying to tend their own gardens, not to those who simply want to exploit yours. Your gift, once a source of depletion, becomes a source of incredible strength and connection. You can read the needs of others more clearly than ever, but you no longer feel a compulsive obligation to meet them. You can sit with someone in their pain without absorbing it, like a wise gardener sitting beside a neighbor's struggling plot, offering guidance and a spare seed packet, but not digging up their own land to fix it. This is the birth of the integrated empath, the balanced warrior. Someone with the sensitivity to feel everything and the wisdom to choose what deserves their energy. You can hold boundless compassion for the world, but your primary act of service is now to the sacred ground of your own soul. For you now understand the most fundamental truth. You cannot offer water from an empty well, and you cannot offer flowers from a barren garden. And so, you begin the real work, the joyful work. You start to consciously cultivate your garden. You learn to identify your own native flowers, your passions, your joys, your unique gifts, and you give them the best sunlight. You learn to love your thorny roses, understanding that their sharpness is what protects the delicate blossoms. You honor your deep roots, listening to their intuitive whispers. You might even discover beautiful plants in your shadow you never knew existed, a capacity for leadership, a talent for creation, a wellspring of joy you had buried under layers of obligation. You are no longer just surviving, you are thriving. You are creating a vibrant, resilient ecosystem within yourself. And this tended garden of the soul, becomes your greatest gift to the world. Not the sacrifice of your land, but the beauty of its bloom. People are inspired not by your exhaustion, but by your vitality. They learn not from your self-abandonment, but from your self-possession. The journey from the forgotten garden to the tended garden is the empath's great evolutionary path. It is the journey Jung documented with such awe. It is not a journey from sensitivity to numbness, but from unconscious absorption to conscious, creative choice. It is the realization that your greatest tragedy was never the depth of your feeling, but the length of time you waited to honor it as your most sacred guide. The snap is not a breakdown. It is a breakthrough. It is the moment the gardener awakens and claims their land. They don't become a different person. They become the person they always were, beneath all the weeds. So I ask you, as you stand at the edge of your own inner landscape, what do you choose? Will you continue to let your sacred ground be a dumping site for the unresolved pain of the world? Or are you ready to pick up your tools? Are you ready to learn the names of your own flowers? To honor your own thorns? To build your own protective fence of self-love? The world does not need more broken, depleted empaths. It needs awakened ones. It needs conscious gardeners who know their own worth, who trust their own perceptions, and who refuse to dim the light of their own magnificent bloom for anyone's comfort. If you are ready to become the sovereign gardener of your soul, to embark on this beautiful, terrifying, and ultimately liberating transformation, declare it now as a promise to your own sacred soil. I choose conscious transformation because your garden has been waiting for you. It has been waiting for its true keeper to finally come home.